Hello there and welcome to this week's edition of Women in the Fore right here on Times TV with me, Wezi Kasambala. This week I've been joined by a psychotherapist and nutritionist who also happens to be the founder and managing director of Vintage Health. Her name is Cecelia Saidi-Matthews. Thank you for joining us, Cecelia.
Thank you, Wezi.
Such a pleasure having you on the program.
Same here.
I don't think I've ever had a psychotherapist before,
Okay.
nor have I had a nutritionist. But I think before we get to your background,
Sure.
it's important to understand what you do. So, what is a psychotherapist?
So, a psychotherapist, in simple terms, would say is a counselor. So, counseling is short term.
Yeah.
That's where you just have maybe a one-time interface with an individual client.
Right.
They walk in and then they have an issue, then you sit and then you talk it through. Whilst when we're talking about psychotherapy, it's longer term. So, not longer term like forever, it has to be scheduled.
Yeah.
So, you schedule sessions with the client, depending on the issue that they present with.
Okay.
The first session usually, mostly is the assessment.
Okay.
So that's when you have, you talk in depth with the issue that the client is presenting with. Then thereafter you schedule sessions to say, how am I supposed to be seeing you and at what intervals. So psychotherapy usually involves looking into one's issue, the problem,
Okay.
and then using different approaches and trying to resolve that issue. Not you as a therapist, but just then trying to help the person to cope up and have that mechanism that they can be able to deal with their own issues.
Right. Okay.
Sure.
And a nutritionist. I think I guess we can probably all guess what a nutritionist does, but just remind us what that involves as well.
So nutrition, like we all know, is about one's body. The process starts when we start taking in something. That's food.
Okay.
The whole process of the food, how it's processed, how the body assimilates the nutrients, and how the body excretes that, and then how the body responds. Either you're gaining match fat, or you're losing muscle. So one can be undernourished, or one can be overnourished.
Okay.
So that's
Overnourished being a bit obese, right?
Obesity.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. All
Sure.
right. So at least we now understand what it is that you do. Let's now go back in time, so we understand how you got to become a psychotherapist and a nutritionist, and even set up your own business called Vintage Health. So tell me about your background. What was your childhood like?
So I was born in June, 28th June 1988, in a family of 5 girls.
Wow, all girls.
All girls. So I'm the third one. So I have 2 upper sisters and 2 lower sisters.
Right. Okay.
Sure. So growing up has been fun. My dad passed on when I was 8.
Right.
So I had to go live with my uncle.
Okay.
So my childhood has been between living with my uncle and my mom's home.
Right. Okay.
So with that, being presented with that, not having a father, I was always looking up to my uncle as my dad.
Right.
And he's been so supportive in my education and made me just to look at education like that's the only way out in
That's
life.
right.
Yeah, so basically that's been that.
Okay. What was it like? Obviously, you still spent part of your early childhood with your mom and your sisters, I guess.
Exactly.
What was it like growing up in a household with so many girls? I mean, you must have drawn something from that as well, right?
Yeah, a house full of girls. We called it a girls' hostel.
Indeed.
Yeah,
a
so
sorority.
it's fun. Like when you have a great connection with your family, like we would bond a lot from the childhood with my sisters and my mom, and obviously being in that situation where your mom is trying to look after 5 kids.
Yeah, not easy
It's
as
not
a single
easy.
mom.
So you always admire her efforts and everything that she does. So I've always also looked up to her to say I have to be a great mom someday and provide for my kids.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
So you
it's
would
been
actually say
inspiration.
your mom was perhaps one of your biggest role models. Would you say that?
Yeah, looking at what one has to do as a lady to take care of her kids.
Yes.
And then just that she goes a very extra mile to, I mean, like in terms of how she loves us and cares for us. So, yeah, that has always been in me and has inspired me just to give my whole self to others.
Oh, wow. That's
Sure.
amazing. Now, you talked about your dad, and obviously the loss of your dad when you were 8 years old, and how following that, you then looked up to your uncle as almost a father figure. As a young woman in Malawi, how significant do you think it is to have that a male figure as well? Because there's so many families where girls are being raised just by their mums.
Exactly.
But how significant? And I mean, a lot of them still go on to do great things.
Yes.
They still manage to succeed in life. But how significant do you feel that perhaps it was for you to still have a male figure that you could look up to as a dad, as a woman?
So, like you said, growing up with a single parent and being a mom has its advantages and disadvantages.
Right.
Yeah, and also like when a child is growing up, they're looking at their mom as both a mom and a dad. So, but obviously there's something that's lacking. There's still that discrepancy that they see, like for a male person to come into their life. You can agree with me if a child is growing up and looking at their dad and they're able to hug them and to congratulate them when they do something good, it just brings out something good in them. And now when a child gets, especially a girl child, when they get to the teenage, they wouldn't be in a rush to look for a male person, a male figure to say, I have to connect to somebody.
I see what you mean.
Yeah, so like when you grow in the absence of a male figure, you're always trying to search and see who
to fill this void.
Exactly,
right.
The gap. Then sometimes you also land into issues like young girls dating older men.
Yeah.
Because they're looking at them as a father figure.
Right.
And then they just want to be loved and then to be cared for in that way. So psychologically, it's an issue. And you're right, and it really affects childhood.
That's right. I think you've raised a very, very valid point, which perhaps sometimes we don't think about, that when you lack that male father figure, you end up looking in the wrong places.
Yes.
And you don't even realize that you're setting yourself up for failure because of your background. So what was schooling like, though? You said that your uncle was really big on education. He was a strong advocate of education.
Exactly.
So what was it like for you as a little girl in primary, secondary school? What were your interests at the time?
So my interest, surprisingly, has always been low.
Wow, okay. I'm not surprised, though.
Okay.
Everyone who sits here always says, I actually wanted to do something else when I was younger.
Yeah.
So it's kind of the way things always pan out.
Exactly. So it's been low. When I was in secondary school, I was at Army Secondary School. My uncle was a soldier. He's retired now.
Right.
So went to Army Secondary School. I remember, I won't put up names, but there's a very... a prominent figure in the law society, a lawyer that also mentored me. So I would go to high court. He would come get me for an exit at school, and I would go watch a case.
Wow.
So I even set up a club at secondary school for human rights.
So you meant business?
Yeah, I did.
So what happened?
Then I think going up our classes, like in Form 3, I started taking very keen interest in biology.
Right.
And I thought, okay, now I want medicine.
Sciences, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, at the time when you were thinking medicine, did you have a specific area that you had in mind, or did you just want to become a general practitioner, like just a doctor?
So I've always thought of gynecology.
Right.
Yeah. But I didn't at that level. I didn't think so much about it. But I just knew that I wanted to be a doctor. Well, I'm not now, but that's what I wanted. I just discovered myself more to be liking biology and sciences. Then my whole focus changed.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
And when you were growing up, being such a person who was really into your education in school, what was it like dealing with other sort of challenges as a young woman when you were younger? Because obviously when you're young, there's still all kinds of other distractions, there's peer pressure.
Yes.
But if you're like someone like you had focus. How did you deal with the challenges, and what were some of the challenges as a young woman?
So it might sound funny, but I think the fear that I had for my parents.
Yeah.
Parents, I mean my mom, my uncle, and my aunt, because those were the three people that were close to me.
Yeah.
So the fear
they made a terrible three, didn't they?
I tell you.
Put the fear of God in you.
So I always thought, well, if I'm going to date or if I'm going to have a boyfriend before secondary school,
They'll
they
kill
know
me.
about it. So I went up to Form 4 and never had a boyfriend.
You never dated?
No.
When
Yeah,
you look
so-
back now, do you think that's something that is still really critical? That maybe young women should try and avoid that those kind of relationships until perhaps maybe they're at university or they're much older.
So it's not a clear-cut thing.
Yeah.
At a certain age, a girl has to start interacting with boys. And then it's also healthy. They're trying to discover themselves and see what kind of person they are and growing up, who they would want to be with. But at the same time, living in a world where we are now, there's just so much that's happening.
Yeah, there's a lot of risk.
Yeah, that line between what should I do and what I shouldn't do, coupled with the peer pressure, somebody might say, okay, you have a boyfriend, you haven't kissed him, you haven't had sex, but I'm having fun. So then it pushes the person to go
do things that they're perhaps not even ready for at that point.
But I always encourage parents who have girl children, like in my case, I have 2 kids, girls. So I always encourage them to be open, to have open conversations.
Yeah.
About boys at a certain age and talk
about their sexuality as well, right?
Yeah, who you like, who's your friend, and then when the child is open enough to discuss those issues, they'll be able to come to a point to say, well, mom, I've got a boyfriend, and at that point, as a parent, you come in to say, this is what you have to do, this is what you don't have.
You're ready or you're not ready.
So they get it from a parent, they trust it more.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's either healthy, depending on the angle that you take it, or if you know that it's just a way you assess your child and you feel, well, you just have to push to say, wait until you're done with maybe other levels like high school. But it's a challenge. It's difficult.
It is. It's not easy, isn't it?
Yes.
I think as a woman, you're faced with so many challenges.
Exactly.
Biologically, your body's changing, and then there's all kinds of other peer pressures. In terms of identifying your sex and identifying with being female and different from the boys, did you have those kind of challenges? Did you ever feel that so conscious of the fact that, well, perhaps I can't do certain things because people think I'm a girl? Did you ever experience that when you were younger? Or maybe at university, college, perhaps?
Well, I've always had the driving force in me to say I can do anything. So one of the things that I learned at an early stage is to know who I am, which is a very important part that people miss. Knowing who Wezi is. If you know who Wezi is, you know what you can do and what you cannot do. Yeah, not like we have boundaries or limits, but you just have to know your abilities. Yeah. So when you capitalize on that, it's pretty much easy to know, like, I can do anything. So for me, I told myself at an early stage to say, I don't have to be limited by what people say or what I feel I cannot do. So I just move on to say I can do anything. So despite the challenges and everything, I haven't faced many obstacles to say because you're a lady. Yeah.
So you didn't ever necessarily face any kind of discrimination because you're a lady, no?
No, not such that I would say it's significant. Yeah. So,
okay.
Sure.
Before we go to break, very quickly, so talk me through how you wanted to do gynecology, but you didn't, clearly. How did you go into nutrition? What did you study?
So I did food nutrition. Yeah, so looking at still, I couldn't make it to UNIMA. So obviously I knew this, but then I didn't even push more. I would have maybe gone for a second entrance. Yeah. But I didn't. I just gave up and I said, okay, I'll try other ways. So
when you look back now, do you think that perhaps you should have given it another shot?
Obviously.
Yeah, because you really wanted to become a gynecologist, right?
So I always think, I know people that got far more points than I did, and then they were able to get through. I mean, like, get through UNIMA, but I said, okay, maybe I could have tried the second time. But anyway, it's not just one channel that gets you there.
That's right.
So I did food nutrition. I just felt that understanding the human body and how it processes food.
So where did you do food nutrition?
NRC.
Okay. Okay. NRC stands for?
Natural Resources College.
Yes. Okay.
Now under Luana.
Okay.
In Lilongwe.
Right. I see. Sure. Okay. So was it something you were still passionate about?
Very. At that point, very. Yeah. So I was so passionate about it. And then I was putting all my effort in it. Yes. And I got very good grades.
Wow. Sure. So was it a 3-year degree course, or what? How did it work when you do food nutrition?
So food nutrition is 2 years.
Right.
Yeah. When you do with basics, it's 2.5 years. Then after that, you can upgrade whether you go to Bunda. But I didn't choose that path. Okay. So I just did NRC. Okay. Sure.
We're going to take a short break, Cecelia, but when we come back, we'll now talk about how you climbed up the career ladder, got your first job, got to set up your business, your first business as well. But we'll be right back after this short break. If you're just joining us, you're watching this week's edition of Women in the Fore, and I'm talking today to Cecelia Saidi-Matthews, who is a psychotherapist and a nutritionist who happens to own her own business called Vintage Health. Sure. But we'll be right back after this short break. Welcome back to Women in the Fore right here on Times TV with me, Wezi Kasambala. Today I'm having a chat with a nutritionist, stroke psychotherapist. Her name is Cecelia Saidi-Matthews. She owns her own business called Vintage Health.